Howdy, folks. We're looking at Edge Magazine number 9. Oh, and I forgot to mention two things last time. First of all, Yu Suzuki said something very funny in the interview about the Mortal Kombat games. He was talking about the arcade, and he mentioned how he actually thought that Mortal Kombat would have been more popular if it was less violent. So now we all know that the whole point of Mortal Kombat is to be violent. And John Carmack also said something interesting about he already mentioned back then about Quake being the next kind of game they would be making, and also referenced Hexen, or at the time Heretic, and Strife. And if you don't know about Strife, look it up. It was finally released in 1996, and it's a fantastic shooting game with a lot of elements you later would see in Deus Ex. Not as good, of course, but Strife used the Doom engine, and it used the engine fantastically. So the reviews. We have Pagan Ultimate 8, one of the black sheep in the series. As far as I know, Ultima 4 is the best one, especially for its time. And Ultima 7 is seen as the best all-around Ultima game. And 8 was an action RPG, actually. Actually, it could jump and attack in real time. And it was considered rather odd because of the atmosphere. And generally speaking, people liked Ultima 8 less than Part 7. Also, Part 8 was much smaller than Part 7. Nevertheless, Edge, without really giving any good explanation why, they still gave the game a 9, which I think is way too high. I mean, it was still better than most role-playing games, but a 9 even? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. Here we have Pebble Beach Golf Links for the 3DO. Almost a picture-perfect golfing game. I kind of like how they used video stills. I bet they're animated, and I like that more than the polygons most games use nowadays for golf games. Edge gives it a 7, which is understandable considering it's 3DO and Electronic Arts making the game. Now here's the Horde, and it gets an 8, and this is one of the more interesting issues for the 3DO. It's 2D. And from what I understood, is what you do is you build your own little town, while also fending off enemies, sort of like what you do in ActRaiser when you have your own little towns. And I love that part. So I'd love to play this game. I like the combination of action and building things. It also has a pretty interesting art style. So this is a hidden gem, I believe, for the 3DO. Fatal Fury 2, why are they reviewing this for the PC Engine? Well, the reason why is mostly due to technical reasons. You could insert that extra 2 MB of RAM into your PC Engine, and that would make it be able to play Fatal Fury 2, a Neo Geo game. We're talking one of the strongest 16-bit computers. And having one of its games being played on one of the strongest 8-bit computers. And according to Edge, it's a fantastic conversion. Even better than the Super Nintendo version. So that's interesting. So, we also have Art of Fighting 2. At the time, I was amazed at how big the sprites were in this game. It still has the zooming in and zooming out of the original Final Fight, but better. But other than that, it's quite a lackluster fighting game, and it only gets a 5 out of 10. And it's not as good as Fatal Fury Special, and it sure isn't as good as Samurai Showdown. So yeah, that's why it only gets a 5. And here we have it. Super Metroid. Wow. What do you think Edge gave? A 10? Maybe a 9? No, they actually gave it an 8. An 8 out of 10. Can you believe that? Edge at the time was obsessed with the latest technology, and yes, they mention how it's like Zelda, and that's all good. And but there are actually three things they complain about. Three things. First of all, they call the gameplay pedestrian at the beginning. Well, I guess that's true for the first, I don't know, until you get the get some upgrades. Yeah, it's a very simple game, but I don't know. I've never felt like it's pedestrian. Just Samus starting anew. Number two, they complain about the size of the game. They finished it in 12 hours on the first go, and they were like, "Hey, this is too short of a game." But so what? I mean, you've experienced so much. Nobody complains about the length anymore, and there's always speed running and all the secrets to find out. So no, that's not really a problem. And what was the third thing again? I've seemed to have forgotten what I forgot about. Was it the graphics? I think it was, because they said that some of the places looked kind of bland. And yeah, I have to admit, halfway through the game, there are some places that look very square, kind of like this. And that detracts from the beauty of other places. And they wonder, what happened with all those 24 megabits of information? What did they do with it? It says so here. Wonder where all those megabits went to. So, yeah, they talk a little bit about how the Super Nintendo didn't have that many games at the moment. We're good, and this one's good, but only an 8 for Super Metroid. I mean, this game should have been a 10, without doubt. Probably the best 2D game ever made. So it's up there with Deus Ex and Dysphoria. If I were to say the three best games of all time, it would be those three. And yeah, still they dedicated 3 pages to it, so that's a start. But not that positive. What they are very positive about is the Sentinel, which is another game I love. You have to play this to get it. It's like hide and go seek. You try to get up the hill without the Sentinel seeing you, and when he sees you, you have to hide quickly. And there's no animation in this game. The PlayStation 1 version looks better, but this game, it's just fantastic. It was for all the systems: Spectrum, Commodore 64, Amiga, even the Atari ST. And yeah, I wonder if there's an Amstrad version. But yeah, the Sentinel, also one of the best titles ever for a video game. The sequel is called The Sentinel Returns. Oh no, it's just Sentinel Returns. Yeah, so one of the best games out of the 80s, at least 1988. Try to play it one time or another. It's extremely exciting. And the remake is on PlayStation 1. All these back issues now. It's picking up. Telegames is apparently a company that actually made the Lynx. So they're also selling them. Here we have the charts. This is pretty interesting. Edge's Most Wanted. They're looking forward to Daytona, of course. Mortal Kombat 2 for the Jaguar. An arcade perfect port? I don't know. I should look it up. Was it ever released for the Jaguar? Doom for the Jaguar? Sure thing. Inferno. That silly game. They're looking forward to that. And F-Zero 2. Wow. In 1994 already. Yeah, they were expecting that. Any interesting releases being sold? Well, not really. I noticed how the Super Nintendo had Super Mario Kart number 1 out to number 5. But they also have Zelda 3 at 10th place. So Super Nintendo doesn't have that many new games. There is, of course, NBA Jam, which was not reviewed by Edge, unfortunately. Should have gotten an 8 or a 9. But Edge didn't bother looking at games that everybody else would cover. We have Rare, working with Silicon Graphics. That's interesting. Project Reality. And they would be making Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct soon enough. Here we have John Hare, who has 3 very good games to his name. Let's see, what were they again? Of course, there's Sensible Soccer. There's Cannon Fodder. which is also very good. And one game that does